session here. Just to say, we've had some really contentious and uncomfortable times around this board in the last few months. And I think I for one, don't want to do that anymore. And so I think by the policies and the way that we invite our public comment, we certainly want to hear from the public, but by the way that we invite that public comment, we should have much more control and balance and ideas being shared rather than emotions being shared, that sort of thing. And so my first point, I guess my first argument will be that we don't do anything punitive to our public, that we have things more open, more available, and more clearly thought through. And from the stuff that Rick printed there, the information, it seemed to me for the economy of all of our time and the audience's time, that if we stay to the 3-minute limit for public comment, and if we require that a person would bring the script of that public comment to the meeting, and that we can copy and duplicate it internally, but that we would all have a copy of the script, and as they present, we can read along and know exactly where they're going. And then that sometime not too long after that, maybe in a day or two, there would be some sort of administrative response so that those two could be put out publicly side by side. And I think by having a script, we're going to, for one thing, have people, every time you put your ideas to pencil and paper, they clarify. And so I think we'll get a much more concise, clear thought about what the person is presenting and why they're presenting it, what they mean by it. And we'll have then a chance, rather than sitting up here sort of stonewalling, like not giving any response to anything because we can't afford to have a discussion here, by having a planned response in a certain time period, that will give our public the sense that we did hear, that we did know what they were talking about, that we've evaluated the ideas. We have some administrative time to think about what are good responses to those ideas. And I think particularly for the time in this room, the 3 minutes will be much better spent if a person has put it on paper and has it in front of all of us where we can review it, we can look at it and see it. And so I'm open to discussion. I don't want to force that view. There are other thoughts about how to do it, but I think the one thing I might stand for is that we not have anything punitive or smaller or less about our public comment, but that we have it concise and well stated and open, our public comment time, not restricted or made small. So, but I'm open to hearing from the rest of you too on ideas.
I think my choice would probably be to limit it to the example that was provided in one of the emails that Rick sent to us, where people sign up and they would meet privately with a couple of the school board people. And the reason I think that is because it's still, like you say, we need to stay connected with the public. We serve everybody in the school district. My concern is that the 3-minute limit has been extended for how many meetings and it's never been followed. People continue on and they forge ahead, and then we run into all sorts of circumstances. Whereas if they sign up, they're given a 3-minute time and they can bring their copy if they want and leave it with Rick or with whomever they're visiting with. We would then have written copy where we can address whatever their concerns are. They're still heard in the privacy of whatever room we decide to do that. But I would be concerned about keeping it in the meeting or moving it to the end, because we're going to end up with the same situations that we've had. They don't abide by the rules, and it just causes all sorts of inequities.
I'll jump in. I like Dean's idea. I think it's important we keep it in a public setting for the public to know what's happening. You know, we're caring for people's children, and I think that's valuable. I think it's important that our whole board hears it together, because it does feel different when it's coming from the individual. But having a printout, I think, would help to keep it, making sure that it, you know, follows the respectful policies. And in our policies that we do have, I thought we could maybe implement a couple things to help ensure that as a room together, as a board, we are able to follow those policies and keep them in check. So one of those was that the person presents the issue that they're stating, maybe in 1 or 2 sentences, and they say that before they share. Then the audience, everyone who's attending the meeting, and ourselves, I mean, we'd have a copy, but would know clearly what they're addressing. And the other thought I had is, and we could maybe in some way ensure that 3 minutes is up and make that more clear, that is what we're holding to. But I know legislatively, if there was an issue that, you know, isn't following policy, isn't being respectful, then someone can say, Madam Speaker, as in, you know, a signal for the chair to step in. In our position, we maybe would choose a different phrase, but I think that might be a healthy way for us to work together, have each other's back to, you know, help follow the policies and not have it just be on our chair to have to decide when is something pushing the boundaries or not. A way to work together and have, but still respecting that you're leading the meeting.
I guess I've obviously thought about this an awful lot for many months, and particularly after the last month. I like the concepts that Dean presented, getting some things in writing. And I thought that was probably our way forward up until about 4:30 this afternoon. Okay. And so I may change my thinking as we continue this discussion, but what came into my thought process then was that Angie has used the gavel on many occasions in the last several months, and during that period, to try to maintain order. I've not seen any indication that the members of the audience are respectful of her position or her attempts at restoring order. And the 3-minute thing, I mean, the 3 minutes is right there on those big screens. That was, you know, that should have been pretty obvious. And again, they continued on sometimes twice as long as they probably, instead of 3 minutes. But the thing that I'm getting more and more concerned about is safety. I think we were on the edge of some issues regarding safety last meeting. And the crowd, some of those people probably come with, all of the best intentions, but once that crowd dynamic starts to evolve, we've seen some behaviors that are totally out of sorts with these people that we've known in the community for years, and they get sometimes caught up in this crowd we've had here and have behaved and said things that were totally out of character. So Rick shared with me an article from the Orono newspaper and how their school board is addressing it, because they had some of the same challenges, and I think that model we should give some pause and give that a good look. And one of the things that I went to 1 or 2 of those pre-meetings that we had, and I think that when we started in that idea, we thought that would really be an opportunity to have some valuable dialogue. But at least I think Dave was with me on one of those occasions, and it turned out to be a very unpleasant situation again. I mean, there were people being challenged. It became almost like a little mini mob situation even in that small group meeting. So the Orono model, they address that. People speak one at a time, and people make a request to come and present. And I think they have a situation there where if you have spoken within the last 2 months, somebody else may get a chance to speak before you get to speak. And they limit it to 10 speakers. And I think that, and as I thought more about this since 4:30, we have people, parents probably in particular, that may have some really pressing issues that they would like to share with us. And more than likely, that discussion will soon evolve into a situation where there's data privacy questions and so on. And if they're having that discussion in a small group setting, I think that discussion could still be appropriately handled and listened to. But they can't come here in a public meeting and cross the line on data privacy and some of those sorts of things. So it's a different format. It might afford some different opportunities, but I think it's something we ought to bring into the mix, and maybe we modify it and hybridize it so it works better for us. And I would come back to Dean's comments. Sorry, Angie. But the response, I think we need a real-time response. And sometimes the response might be that, we need more time to uncover some more information, but at least there would be a response in, probably by Wednesday following our meeting, just so that there's a timeliness to that response as well. So I said enough for a while. I'll be a good listener now. Okay.
I just have one question now. Are you saying that Orono switched to doing it where it's before the meeting with a smaller group? Is that what you were referring
Yep.
to?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Dean, I totally hear what you were saying, and Alan and Sandy here too. My biggest question is, there's an issue that will come up, and that's, I'm really concerned about staying on the script. It's concerning to me.
Absolutely.
I had a professor at the university that always talked about this. When somebody's testifying or something, they don't stay to the script. And that's my biggest concern. Otherwise, it looks good. And we've had a lot of people that came up that haven't signed up, especially in their first couple meetings, and they've said some things that have affected some people. And I think, to Alan's point, we may learn more because people may talk more to Rick and Angie are in the room than they are here. And maybe we can find some solutions to some of the problems that are affecting people. So I see your point, and I see it's very valid, but I also see Sandy and Alan's point too.
Yep, I do too, and I don't want another scene like we've had. I guess I was more optimistic about our public that they could stay on script, and that the gavel and maybe the officer could handle that. But if we're not willing to go that direction, I'm wondering though, this coming to the board in a small group, has two problems in my mind. One is the person doesn't feel like the whole board has heard it. And sometimes that's going to be important. And the other one is, if they come to a small group, probably it's an administratively handled thing and shouldn't even be at the board level at all. And I think it has to be at the level of somebody being not satisfied with what Rick's judgment and solutions are, that we're going to sort of override. And I think if we put ourselves out there to frequently talking to the public about things that are really administrative things, we really step out of our roles of vision and policy setting and start getting into the role of what boards on much smaller districts do a lot, and that's the micromanaging stuff. And I don't want to be there, especially if it's only 2 or 3 of us who have had the discussion and not the whole board. And if it's not a policy thing or a vision thing, well then that we need to we have able administrators, we need to let our able administrators bring us recommendations if they see need for policy change. So talking to a small group like that, I don't know, it doesn't get us anywhere, it feels like.
Well, a small group, I think what the plan is to the chair and the superintendent and 2 board members on a rotating basis.
Mm-hmm.
So we'd all intertwine, and of course, those 2 board members, along with the chair, will report to the other board members. And I think there's also one other concern, and that's, as Alan said the last meeting, I think we all were a little
Safety.
concerned about safety,
Yeah, that is an issue.
and enforcement is difficult. It's very difficult, and if we can have more of a cohesive discussion in a very thing, we can maybe move forward with some things that are troubling some people.
Thanks, Dave. And as I'm listening, one of the things that's so thanks for your administrative support comment, first of all. Secondly, people, some people will call before they come and say, I'd like to speak through this topic with you, and that's great. Others, I have no idea what they're going to come and speak about. So we have not necessarily asked that question or had the, I think our past experience just haven't had the need to ask that question, good or bad, right or wrong. And so I would welcome those opportunities to solve the problems before they get to the full board. I'm not sure we always have that opportunity. Because I'm not sure always the topics are focused on policy and governance. Whether they should or shouldn't be is another question, probably for another day. But I do think that's maybe a side note. The other piece that I keep thinking about as I'm listening to the group here is our work around human-centered design and design thinking. And that the first phase in that is empathy. And I do think it's crucial that we continue to have opportunities for families, community members to be able to share their experience. Once you have a chance to empathize, then you can start to dig in and understand people's experience, and then hopefully evolve our practice to respond accordingly. And so I do think as we go forward, no matter which format this lands in, to keep the focus on listening and empathy, and then we work towards solutions once we have a good understanding of their experience. And I'm not sure there's a perfect way to do that, to empathize. I think there's a variety of ways we can do that. We've clearly had a way that has worked for a number of years, and this is not just our school district, but school districts across the state and across the country. And is there now another way where we continue to hear our students and families that we serve, our community members, our taxpayers, in a way that allows us to hear in a safe place, in a safe way, which then makes me think about the end. So if we were to move to this format that maybe mirrors some of the work in Orono, that at the end of the meeting we also have board reports. And I still I still think people think better when they put it in writing. And at least that's true for me. And can we bring those back to the full board and then share sort of a summary of that? And then I also really appreciate your thoughts, Dean, about the response. And as I've talked to people, they say it is really frustrating to not get a response. And that would be true for me, right? I think that'd be true for all of us if we were speaking. And I know it's been fun we've had a couple orientation sessions with Maureen and Angie and I think the three of us have echoed that as well, and about that frustration of the lack of response and how might we get to a new way of doing that. So I really like your response idea as well.
I think on that note of empathy, I've done small group meetings, and I felt, a much closer connection with the people in the small group. I felt we were listening, we were sharing stories. I felt much more empathy towards those people in the small group setting than I did in these large group settings. I have had parents call me and say, I would like to come and speak at a school board meeting, but I'm afraid. I may not believe with what the majority is feeling. I don't feel safe, on your point, Alan. And so they don't come. So I don't feel like we're hearing from a lot of people that want to come to meetings because they're feeling intimidated. And if we get back to those small groups and stick very strictly to the guidelines of 10 people, 3 minutes, or whatever the format is, we're going to get a more diverse group coming and maybe hear different different stories, and again, have more empathy. So I would lean towards something similar to Orono, but again, do some follow-up. I think Rick's been doing an amazing job of following up. I know he spends a lot of time on the phone with people. But again, when you don't know what people are going to say at the meetings, they're not following the 3-minute guideline. And it puts a lot of weight on Angie to try and control these meetings that have gotten out of control. I heard one person say, as they were leaving the last meeting, they said, do you think this meeting was bad? Wait till the next one. The public.
Oh, great.
So.
Okay, I give. We are to control our public, isn't that sad? Isn't that?
But the thing is too, that we rely on each other on our committee meetings to bring back reports.
Yes, we do.
And we trust each other's judgment and input. But if there was written copy, even if we did it in small groups of 2, and the individual that wanted to visit with us and had a concern, at the end of the meeting, we could share that information. We'd have written copies of the verbiage of whatever they shared with us. And the other thing is too, that things are never etched in stone. It doesn't hurt to try some new approaches to see if we can accomplish some good things, because we do accomplish good things at these meetings.
I think our community is just expecting us to do something different. I think we've tried this, we've practiced, we talk about practicing, meeting decor, and it's just not happening. I worry too about our staff. I was forwarded an article from a staff member about Blue Valley, Kansas. So this ironically is where we learned about our CAPS program and where we brought that from. And it's negative. If this is nationwide. I just feel that we place a big burden on our staff by this negativity that surrounds the school board. And it shouldn't have to be this way. It hasn't ever always been this way. And I also find that talking about small groups, or talking to somebody face to face, like on the phone. I've had lots of phone calls in the past months with people, and it's much more respectful on the phone. You can hear them. You definitely develop that empathy for them, in trying to come to some solutions. But I think that I think we need to look at doing something different. I think we can certainly look at the model that Orono has. I think could be something to try out. And like you say, it's not set in stone. It's something we can change.
The other thing is I know a lot of these are live thoughts, and good or bad, right or wrong, or sometimes our blessings are our curses, right? So I keep waiting for the next best idea. Oftentimes, some people call that procrastination. Well, that's the other piece is tonight is, do we have to land this tonight? Would it be good to follow up with some other school districts and just see what that experience is? What were some of their pitfalls? And I know this is a really quick turnaround from, we just had our meeting on December 20th. And do we give it some time and do some additional research and come back at our committee meetings in January and have that as a topic and then communicate out with our public at that point. And I think I would echo what Angie said. I think the public expects us to do something different, that does not hold Alexandria in good standing in the state or in our region even. And I think, I expect, at least as I reflect on my own experiences, right, if I can do something better, then I should take an action. That's also part of human-centered design is and I appreciate what Sandy said, doesn't mean it's set in stone. But let's get to the next iteration of what this looks like. Continue with access for the board. I think that's important. But is there another way to do it that allows safety and some more respect and decorum to be present? So I just want to, I guess, open that idea that it doesn't have to be decided tonight per se.
But we do need to tell our public what's going to happen at the January meeting with a little bit of time for them to think about it. Because if we're not going to have a public open forum here like has been our policy, I think they better know that ahead of time. Or there'll be some real disappointments.
So what is the, we just talked about our calendar. So what are the dates for our committee meetings in January?
They're late because of the conference next week, so they're pushed back to the 3rd.
So the 18th and the 19th.
Yeah.
And then
And the 24th is the board meeting.
You're right, it doesn't allow us a lot of time to.
Yeah, that's good.
To change.
See, again, so just because I have an idea doesn't mean it's a good one, so I want to affirm that too.
I think,
Well,
I understand the thought of moving to a small group or outside session. I still don't like that it wouldn't be our full board together. I think there's some value in that. But also, I guess one concern that I have of jumping to nixing our public comment time that's in this meeting so soon is the fact that the last meeting, when it got so out of hand or out of order, a lot of it was because we didn't respond. There wasn't a moment of telling them to be quiet or addressing the speaker that was, against our policies of how to address as well. So I guess I'd just like to put that out there that I think it's maybe a little too soon. Maybe we could put some things into place to help that time, or even if we broke it up into segments of different parts of the meeting based on what issue you were addressing, that could help to keep an orderly flow or a more peaceful environment in the process, but doing some things to help create a healthy atmosphere and respond. And if you like the idea of getting to say Madam Speaker or something to help us work together in that response. So just thought I'd say that again.
I became aware too today that the city council has, over the last couple of years, I'm not sure exactly when, but we recall that they were having a lot of contentions and I guess some safety issues as well at some of their meetings, and they only receive comment now by email. So when safety is a concern, that is a justification for making some changes that otherwise probably wouldn't be made. But so I wasn't aware the city had gone to that, but that's been there. You've been there, Sandy. Is that how they did it?
Yeah, they've done it, and I don't know if that was an inception with Bobby or if that happened already with Sarah because of some of the issues that had come up. I don't know exactly when the start date was, but they had completely eliminated public comment, and you do send an email to them, and then they address it in an email.
Well, the writing is a good idea. Getting it down on paper, that can have a big impact, I think.
And the paper can be shared with all 7 of us.
Yeah.
And so we'll all have that same initial base of information. I would assume that the persons that are putting their thoughts in writing would include their name and maybe an email address or phone number. So if as a board person, we want to follow up particularly with some questions to that person, we could. That's something that, we don't get afforded when they come and speak right here. Okay. There's many times I've had questions I would have liked to have asked. And so I think there's time for us to give some consideration, get some more information, bring it to us at our committee meetings. And I think if we decide to make an adjustment at our committee meetings ahead of our January meeting, I think that's very appropriate because there's a lot at risk here. And to make an adjustment for our January meeting, I think would be very appropriate. I think, as some of you have indicated, the public is expecting to see something different at our next meetings. And I too have had contact by many persons, and some of them were even in the room the last few meetings we've had, but they dare not speak. They dare not speak. And after our last meetings, activities, they're I'm sure more scared to speak now than ever before. And we need to hear some of those voices too, and put it in writing and put it in front of us. So.
And I also appreciate what Maureen said. I think it's important that all board members have that information. And really, is there more than one way to accomplish that? Because I think without but then it's sort of this combination, right? In writing, in advance, be thoughtful that we can then hand out to every board member so that they, with name and, identify who you are. And then I also really, at least on the personal side, obviously I like two-way communication, right? Those of you that know me know that I like to talk to people and enjoy people, and I think that response piece, I think, is an important piece. And again, not that we're always going to have an answer in the moment or in 24 hours or 36 hours or whatever that is, but it just feels respectful to people. But I would echo kind of to Maureen's point about the full board getting that message, whether that's in writing or other ways, but I do think that's important.
I'm just reflecting on another thing. We did have one person bring us a loose leaf binder of materials. Maybe we should ask for people's own thoughts and not necessarily all the documentation. Or we could have reams of paper to read, I don't know how I feel about that yet. I'm just live thoughts. Thank you, Rick. But we don't need copies of website pages and pages to read through. That won't serve any of us.
Well, if we stick sort of to the same 3-minute
To the
idea,
3-minute?
I would think whatever they would give to us in writing would have to be equivalent to 3 minutes of speaking, or something
go for that.
close to that.
Yeah, I would go for that.
And I like your idea, Alan, whoever mentioned that about, well, maybe we begin with emails. I mean, maybe for the month of January, we don't allow any public comment, and it will be just through emails until we determine how we're gonna move forward, rather than trying to make a quick decision, at our next committee meeting and then have to quick get it out to the public. If we say at this meeting, there will be no public comment in January, however, you can email us, limit something to, or we could say X amount of pages.
So of course, I just Googled 3 minutes at the normal speaking rate of 130 words per minute is 390 words. So
400 words.
400 words or less.
That's a good size. Yep.
And then that would be shared with the entire board. And that gives us some time to come up with maybe a different format for February. I don't know, that's again, a live thought, and just,
I have a question. If we were to move to a private setting prior to the meeting where an individual speaks, is there a reason we couldn't have the full board present to hear that individual?
open meeting.
Yeah, it would violate open meeting law.
Okay, so we just need it to be a public meeting to have all that.
I guess, Pam, I like your idea. I think also Alan with the city council, and I think also there's been, like radio stations and things in the past that have received phone calls that have now went strictly email, because there's some things that people say that, and that way they can go off the email. So I like that idea very much.
I think I want to be careful with limiting the ways that the public can contact us, in the sense that we're dealing with children. We're dealing with people's children, and so I think our job in overseeing the benefit and the future of these growing kids has more. I wouldn't want to limit a parent's ability to talk about something that's concerning for their child. And to me, an email feels, if we were to do email only, like if it was for 1 month only while we decide, that's a reasonable thought, I think. But in general, I'm concerned with that idea, because I don't want it to feel like we don't have access to get valuable insight for what's happening among our community and kids.
But that's what I think is really ironic, is a lot of the people that are speaking are not parents. I mean, I'd like to know, when people come up and speak, we ask them, what is your role, or what are you here to speak about? And very few are parents. So, I mean, that's why I'm on the board, is because I was a parent when I got on the board. I had small children. A lot of the people that are coming to the board meetings now do not have small children in our district. So to say we're closing that off to parents, I mean, I disagree. That's not what this has become. It's not about the parents. So I think it's keeping parents from coming to the board and speaking. Those are the people that are calling and saying, I want to come to the meetings and speak about things other than masking, other than mandates, other than school closing, and that they're afraid to come and speak.
I think too, with our changes that we're making to our website, we're gonna have our email addresses there. We're gonna have it's gonna be easier for the public to access us individually too. And I think that's sometimes an easier venue for a lot of parents than speaking in front of a crowd as well.
Just thinking historically, and Alan and Pam especially, you could fill me in on this too, but we have not historically had very many parents come and talk to us about things that the administration couldn't give a satisfaction to, if my memory is right. Would you say 2 hands full maybe in 30 how many years of things that parents were concerned about that administrators couldn't handle?
No, I think you're right on, Dean.
And so to make this so open that we have all these wonderful parents that want to give us insight into how their kids are doing, that is at the board level, that is not how boards work. That gets us all skewed. Those are, at the teacher and principal level almost exclusively, and if not there, at least at the district level. And I don't know that we, as a board, want to get into listening to all the parents that have complaints about all the teachers that their kids, don't get along with, or whatever it is. I mean, then we get into the personnel issues, and I think we just open ourselves up for, but I say that, and then I say, but we do need to listen to the public. We need to, I fear that closing down the public comment will stoke the fires. I don't know. And I think if we could.
But are we really closing it down if we offer an opportunity?
Yes.
that will be in the perception of the public,
Well, that's true, yeah,
not our perception.
true.
So we probably do well to try and read what they're gonna see.
And that's where I think, Sandy, your point earlier, to do something different for January, or January and February, continue to gather feedback from our parents and community members, and see what that means for the next step. Because I think there's lots of good ideas actually from every board member here. And how do we consolidate those into one action step that continues? And again, I go back to that human-centered design piece that allows us to help solve problems through empathy and understanding people's experiences, whether it's parents, community members, so forth. And again, I think to Maureen's point earlier, the full board having that spectrum of knowledge as well, I think is important, particularly as we went through all those committee assignments. You can see how we really do have to divide the duties and trust, right? It's really it's not within anyone's capacity to manage those components. Go ahead, yeah.
Would it be helpful, just an idea again, because it's idea session,
Yeah.
if we had the board, what had been board connections time turned into the setting that we were describing of an individual gets to come and have time to share. And that way the individuals who would feel more comfortable in that not open setting would have their own space. Because sometimes even if you don't know who's gonna be at a board connections meeting, I can imagine that it might feel a little uncomfortable because you don't know who else might be in the room, right? But still have a time in our public meeting that we do have some public comment. Like what if in a way we considered doing both?
We did both for a few weeks, or a few months. Well, let me try and summarize a plan that might be a plan. Let's have no public comment for the next 2 board meetings publicly here. The public would be welcome to come to the meeting, but there will be no public comment there. We will take email comments in the range of 400 words that will be distributed to all of us. And during the end of our meeting, when we have our discussion and board reports, we would refer to what we've received and have some discussion about it. And if the public wishes to stay for our discussion, they won't be invited to participate. But if they want to stay and listen to us discuss or think through these ideas, try that for 2 months. And have not even a time of the small group. Maybe we'll go to the small group after that, but to try that just for the 2 months. Just email comments to us, and we will read and have thought through them sometime during the meeting and have some discussion in our ending time. And I just proposed that, and that's a live thought too. But to get us a plan in mind, I guess. Can we start there?
I think that's a good transition, and if that's in the form of a motion, I would second it.
Okay.
And in the process, we can not only evaluate what we're doing in that model, but we can see if there's another model that we can adapt to as we go forward beyond February.
Yeah.
And,
The other piece that I think is important, and I hope this wasn't part of my evaluation as Dean, you talked about the last 30 years, but I had probably 4 emails from parents today with concerns about their student experiences. Awesome. So A, thanks for having the courage to share your story. B, we're going to get to have some conversations either through email or phone tomorrow. I would also say I think you as board members, and Maureen, I think you got one, and before you even officially started, right? You had a parent reach out to you. Angie, you told me a similar story. I think Pam, you had a similar story. I think all of you have in some fashion. And we directed it to the right spot, right? I think there was a food service issue and a bus issue, and we got the problem directed to the place where it could be solved. And I think that's been the hard part the last 6 months, is a lot of the feedback or public comment period are and again, I think it's okay to get feedback too, right? That's healthy, that's how you learn and grow. But also, how do we help people get to those solutions at the lowest level, or where the level of the concern is? And then if we don't get it solved, now let's go ahead and raise it up that chain of command, if you will, or that organizational setting. You know, if I didn't like my fries at Culver's, I probably don't go straight to the board of directors, right?
Right.
I'll start with the person in the, you know, say the fries are a little undercooked or whatever. I like Culver's, by the way, sorry. But it's how do we get to the solution seeking at the lowest point of concern too, which I think is a good organizational practice regardless of, industry or healthcare or
Are you
education.
proposing that you would share those 4 emails with the whole board then? Is that where you were going with that?
No, I not that I would share those with the board, but I think if I can't solve those with those parents,
Yeah.
then I think this is exactly where the board should be. And those people need to be able to come, whether that's through email for a couple months or be able to come and give public comment. And I think, at least since my time here, we have had those experiences where they weren't resolved. And I clearly have a memory of a couple situations that weren't resolved. I think parents didn't think they were resolved effectively at the board level. And the board gave administration direction to go figure it out and solve it. And that is very appropriate. So I do think it's important for people to know that regardless of how this plays out or format going forward, they have point of contacts with their kids' teachers, their principals, our coaches, our food service people. We've got lots of people ready to listen and to solve problems. And again, if we're not solving them effectively, this is why the board exists, right? Part of that community feedback piece, which is great. And what I will say is whatever direction and guidance the board provides, I'm happy to execute as well. So I want to put that out there as well.
Here, I thought you were going to hold out for your own idea.
No, this is teamwork right here,
Yeah,
in
it's
action.
teamwork, that's right. That's right.
Dean, could I ask you to amend your motion essentially to, with what you said, but also to adopt the, the board meeting format and communication process as presented otherwise? Would that?
All of that too. Yes, I think the rest of this is what we've had in place
Yeah.
for a long time. It would just be the item 3 there under the board format, agenda format,
Yep.
to be eliminated just for 2 months. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you're going to second
Yep,
it?
I understand where we're going with that, yep.
Okay. Is there any further discussion?
Well, I have a question. What will be our process for reconsidering our next step?
I think the next 2 months gives us some time to look at what other districts are doing, think about it, can review it, not have just on-spot thoughts right now, but sometimes we've talked about it. I think that we'll probably get some suggestions and some emails from some parents who will have some ideas for us as well.
So it's an interesting thought. So we do have this innovation tool that we've used internally for staff, and then we did use it externally for students and parents and community members around some of our ESSER funds. We could use that feedback loop. And I think, Maureen, were you sharing another sort of crowdsourcing
Yeah, I
software
shared
with me?
like 2
The-
apps
the-
or software
yeah.
that
And-
districts have used.
And so I have those in the back of my head toolbox here as well. But that could be another way to gather input from our families and community members around how do we go forward to do this effectively, safely, in a way that I think represents our community and our district well. Now, I also would add to Maureen's point, it would be good to put a timeline of when we want to communicate. I think the board has guided me effectively with some deadlines and due dates as I've navigated this role. And so I would sort of echo or affirm Maureen's point about what's our solution sort of deadline, if you will.
So let's have, at the January board meeting, in your administrative report, some thoughts that you gathered from the other administrators, and probably there'll be a little bit of discussion there, and well, maybe that's too soon. Maybe we should do that in February, because January will be the first time we try it at that very meeting. So let's put that on the administrative report for February. During our discussion at the end, that we talk about how that looks. What
It's interesting because while I don't want to limit public comment, and I've made that clear, I'd feel more comfortable if we only did this change for 1 month and then reassess. But as far as when we review that, I don't know. But as far as, I mean, obviously you could vote, and if I disagree, it is what it is. But I guess I just put that out there in my mind. I'd rather a review be sooner than after our two meetings later.
I
If
don't
you
think
wanted-
1 month gives us enough time.
Yeah, if you want to do some crowdsourcing, I don't know if that gives time to gather that and analyze it and have some discussion about it, so.
I wonder, so part of my ponder as you were talking to, and is to bring a decision to the February meeting so people can know as we go to March what that process is, because I don't remember who said that, but making sure we have enough time for our community to process and prepare, and I don't know if Maureen, if you mentioned that, sort of that time, making sure that timeline is appropriate so people can know, because part of this is if you know what to expect, it just, I don't know, clarity is a good thing for people, right? Clarity is good for the human spirit, which is why this pandemic thing has been super challenging. The other piece is we do have this MSBA conference coming up. It's a really, I think this topic is, again, not just here. It's around the state, and the other piece is if we do, again, I'll maybe stop thinking because I'm probably just, I could probably be here all night with idea generation. This is the part that I like about all this work. But yeah, I think just to make sure we have a solid collection of ideas and that we've had a chance as a board to discuss those, and maybe that January meeting gives us the chance to discuss that. Because I think this is an important piece of the puzzle, and know that I would be happy to commit to the work, to do the research, to gather information, I just want it to be, represent our community well, and I know that didn't feel good last month.
What if in the 2 months that were email only, we still have the board connection time? That it doesn't for the public feel like we're doing shut down in input, but we still have, something that's healthy for everyone.
I was feeling that way a little bit ago. I'm kind of thinking, let's do the hiatus, and then maybe we can come back with expecting people to do a 3-minute talk and stick to the script, or whatever we decide it's going to be, or the small groups or whatever. But I think there's a momentum afoot that we need to stop. It's a negative momentum for the community, and I think it needs to stop. And I don't know.
I agree, Dean. I think we need to just sit back and, like Dean said, take a break, take a hiatus, and think about how we're gonna move forward. I don't want to make a quick decision. In the 20 years I've been on the board, I don't think we've ever made a change to the order of the school board meeting. So this is a big deal.
Yeah.
This isn't something we're just gonna change in a matter of a couple weeks. I also like the MSBA meeting. It's a great time to network, talk to other board members. Obviously, everyone in the state has been dealing with this. Let's see how other people are handling this. This gives us some time to think about it. It's a big decision, and I don't want to rush it. And it may be longer than February. I don't even want to commit to saying we're only going to do this for 2 months. To me, 2 months is the minimum amount of time we're going to give this. I mean, we might extend it. But I agree, we can't have another meeting like last month. So I think Dean made a motion, Alan, you seconded.
Any further discussion? All those in favor of that plan? Aye. And opposed?
8.
Motion carries.